Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for joining us on another episode of Words Are Tough. I am here with my co-host,
David Diokendo.
and my name is Jose Rodriguez. One exciting thing about this episode is that it's fight week, right?
Yes. I mean, it's kind of always fight week, but there's like
Yeah.
really important fights this upcoming weekend and like next month or so. But yeah. But I was telling you before we started about how I feel like boxing is like at its lowest point in its history. I mean, I won't say the Conor versus Mayweather was a low point. It was a very interesting point for boxing, but literally two non-boxers are boxing, and it's like making headlines. And do you want
the crazy thing is, it's like it feels like a low point, but at the same time, it's got like the biggest buzz out of any fight.
Yeah.
Even it's outshadowing the UFC. It's outshadowing any other promotions. That's the weird thing when you combine, like, that's why they're always trying to do these, like, Brock Lesnar coming to the UFC, even though he used to be a wrestler. It still brought some kind of like entertainment star value.
Right.
And I just think it's it definitely has. I'm a part of a lot of boxing groups on Facebook and things like that. They're not happy about it.
I'm sure. And I'm a boxing fan, but I'm not a boxing fanatic, even though fan and fanatic are the same thing. Or that's where the fan comes from. But I think I could be wrong. But I was saying before how like boxing, had like remarkable. There's a lot of history in boxing, like Rumble in the Jungle, Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson and Rocky Marciano. Like boxing has there's a big history in boxing, and then somehow it evolved. Maybe I can say devolved, but it changed to now we have a legitimate wrestler in Ben Askren. If you got to mention the names.
Yeah, shout out to Ben Askren.
And I followed his wrestling career since he was in college with the Fro. Even his hair used to be way bigger than it is now, but he used to have a legit Fro.
What was his name? Funky, right?
Yeah, Funky.
Funk style.
Yeah, he actually, in a way, kind of changed how wrestling can be done, and he was very unorthodox in his style. Then he did have I believe he wrestled in the Olympics. I don't know if he placed, but he's a legit guy. And then he obviously was undefeated for like, I don't know, 20. I'm not like Joe Rogan that he can just rattle off like records, but
one thing about him is he was in ONEfc.
Yeah,
and it's crazy that he was even undefeated there because that's the place where they say, oh, they're gonna negate wrestling because you have the knees on the ground.
right.
But
yeah.
he was a grappler that did very well there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited to see him fight. It's Logan, right? Oh, no, Jake Paul. Yeah, I did two brothers confused.
I just find it really interesting that Ben Askren and Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson were traded. One went from ONEfc to UFC, and then from UFC to ONEfc, and both guys lost a knee to the head.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Who did it better?
Oh, Masvidal did it better.
I was thinking about that the other day actually, and I honestly was at a point where like I was like, that might be the best knockout of all time.
I think so.
It might be.
I won't say I called it, but I can confirm with my friend Ben, who I was watching the fight with when they were walking in. I told him, I don't know when's going to happen, but Ben Askren is going to shoot on Masvidal, and he's going to get kneed. I didn't predict the round or anything.
Mystic Dave.
I didn't know he was going to be I didn't say he's going to get knocked out, but he's definitely going to get kneed. And he did get kneed, but again, I'm sounding like just any other guy that said I told you so. So I'll sound like that kind of guy. I told you so guy.
Yeah.
But I can't, I didn't put money where my mouth is. I didn't bet on it. So next time I should. Next time I should.
Do you ever bet on the fights?
Never. I've never bet. I would like to, but it's like I just forget. I just forget to set up like what's one betting site?
DraftKings.
DraftKings, yes. I actually have the app. I just never set up my account. I just need to set it up and.
Yeah, they deposit like 13 cents into your checking, and you like you know, authorize it. So it's kind of annoying a little bit.
Yeah, things like that.
I'd rather just go to like what do you call it? Greasy Joe down the street and like give him some cash.
Yeah, and then with I guess the Paul brothers, Jake and Logan Paul. I honestly never heard of them till I forgot which one. I think it was Logan Paul did some video where he was in Japan's infamous or famous suicide forest video.
Yes.
And my students at the time were like, I hate Logan Paul. He's an asshole. He's a jerk. I'm like, who's Logan Paul? What are you talking about? and you know, I found out about him. I'm like, okay, cool. I can say I've never actually seen a video. I just seen like people talk about them, which says something. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but they definitely ruffle feathers and made a name for themselves. But by the way, they actually were pretty good high school wrestlers.
Yeah.
Both of them. Yeah.
Okay. They do look like they're like, you know, pretty solid dudes. Like,
you know, I mean, for the most part, pretty athletic individuals. I think a lot of times when individuals tend to put other individuals into boxes, like, hey, you can be like this. I mean, I'm not mentioning Demetrius Johnson because I just mentioned him before. You can be a fighter and a gamer. Like, he's a really big gamer. You can, you know, there's other.
Are you talking about DJ?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's a gamer, and he's a really good gamer. A lot of fighters have other things other than fighting. And why can't a YouTuber be an athlete? Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of YouTubers out there that are legitimate athletes or were legitimate athletes. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know. It's just, I feel like, why is this a thing? Like, how did this happen? How did we get here? Can you help me?
Well, in the midst of understanding it all, do you have a prediction on who's going to win?
It's going to sound interesting. I think Jake Paul is going to win via disqualification.
Okay. You
Yes.
think Funky Ben's going to drop him on his head?
I think he's just going to do a lot of dirty boxing for several rounds to the point he gets disqualified. I don't think he cares about winning. I don't think Ben Askren cares about winning. I think he just cares about beating him up. And if he gets disqualified, he gets disqualified.
Did you hear about what he said about Ben's wife? What Jake Paul said about Ben's wife?
Oh no.
It was a little PG, but it was funny. He said that she was thick with 2 C's, you know. And then Ben made a video and he was like recording his wife and he's just like, "Hey, so Jake said you're thick. How do you feel about that?" And she's just like smiling. She's like, "I don't know. Is that good?"
I guess
But it's a pretty funny video.
that is, I mean, I can't speak for women, but if I was a woman and someone called me thick, I would take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Then again, I'm not a woman. So it's I mean, as long as she wasn't offended by it, it's all fun, I guess. But I don't know, like it is kind of teetering on, you know, once you start not bad mouthing, but talking about significant others and family and children. I don't know. I think it becomes a little bit unsportsmanlike.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
and especially that word back in like the HW Plainview days in There Will Be Blood, thick used to be an insult, you know?
It is.
It used to be like, "Don't be thick with me, Alan," you know?
Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you never know. You know, it could go both ways.
Who do you think will win? Are we allowed to say when this fight's happening based on when we're recording?
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best, and hopefully this will be up tonight. Which tonight is Friday, the day before the fight.
Yes.
The fight is Saturday, which would be tomorrow, but not tomorrow when you watch this. It might be the day of, or it could be a few days after the fight.
Approximate. So
Yeah.
I could be either really happy right now or really, really upset based on when this comes out. I could be like, "I told you so," or
wait till that comes out, so
Yeah.
you know that I told you so.
so hopefully he does get. that's my prediction. Jake Paul will win, but via disqualification because Ben Askren just won't care about the rules because he's not going to box.
Okay.
He's just not going to box him. He's just going to just fight him outside of the rules. And do I think he's going to just lift him up and just, dump him on his head? Probably not. But who knows? That could happen. If that does happen, told you so. But if that doesn't happen, oh well. But I just don't think it's going to be like a boxing fight. I think it's just going to be one guy trying to box, another guy just like, I don't care about the rules. I just want to punch you in the face.
I agree with that. I think there's going to be a lot of hugging and Ben Askren's part. And I think Jake Paul is going to win a decision. That's what I think. I think it'll go the full rounds. He's going to get some good shots in on him, but Ben's going to survive. Ben doesn't have a really bad chin. He's shown that in his career. He's gotten bloodied up a few times because he's mostly been dominant. But I think he's going to be able to handle his punches, but he's going to get hit, and he's just going to survive and lose the fight because he's not going to really land too much himself. It's going to keep the whole Triller thing alive for, then for Dillion Danis to come in and fight. That's what I think is next on the horizon.
Dillion Danis. Mind you, Dillion Danis will destroy me in a jiu-jitsu. He's legit. I just feel like sometimes, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but sometimes it's best to, in the context of art, sometimes it's best to not know about the artist sometimes because you might love the art or the music, but then you find out who the musician is, the artist is, and you're like, oh, like he's like a fill in the blank. Like he's like he does this or does that. That's terrible. Yeah. I don't. Then you kind of
doesn't heat up his Pop-Tarts.
That's I used to eat plain unheated Pop-Tarts. It's disgusting. And actually for years I actually ate plain unheated Pop-Tarts until a friend of mine like put in a toaster. I'm like, this is like magic. This is amazing. But yeah, I feel like when it comes to like Dillion Danis, who's a remarkable Marcelo Garcia black belt, I think because of his, I don't like to say the word antics, but because of his personality or how he puts himself out there and interviews and kind of mimics Conor McGregor a little bit, I think people dismiss him, and he is actually a really good practitioner in jiu-jitsu, and also he did fight MMA a few times, and he's also pretty good at that as well. So I don't know. I don't know if it helps his career or hinders. I'm not really sure yet. Time will tell.
Yeah, I think going back to the Dillion Danis situation, how he came from BJJ. What I wanted to know is you started your journey a lot longer than I did. But, I obviously was into MMA at the time, so I knew who the big guys were, Gary Tonin, all these like mega stars that are in jiu-jitsu that maybe even some big UFC fans might not know of because, they're stars in their own right, but just in submission, grappling, things like that. What was your, I guess, like perception of him up until the point he got into MMA?
Dillion Danis?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought he was a legitimate jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he won a lot of big tournaments and even competed in Abu Dhabi, I believe, twice. I could be wrong, maybe 3 times. I don't know if he placed. I'm really foggy with like if he placed or not. I'm pretty sure he did. I don't think he ever won Abu Dhabi. You know what it is? I think once. I mean, I'm gonna sort of connect him with Conor McGregor. I feel like, we saw with McGregor. I'm gonna get back to Dan soon, but we saw McGregor that him from, I won't say from nothing, but from just getting into the UFC, where 40 G's was a lot of money, and 40 G's is a lot of money for me, and I'm sure for you. If I had that amount right now in my pocket, I'd be really happy. But where he was calling out Dana White, like 40 G's, Dana, like where he was betting that he would knock the guy out in one. Mm-hmm. And now 40 G's to him now is like nothing. Yeah. It's like literally
like shine his shoes with it.
Yeah. It's like, so we see this individual, remarkable individual, where his story is like from literally like food stamps, or not food stamps. Is it food stamps?
It was public assistance that he was saying, right? Or and they call it there.
To like a millionaire multi-millionaire, I guess you can say. Definitely a millionaire
Yeah.
within like a few years, 6 or 7 years. Of course, he trained a lot before that. And you literally saw his evolution, or him changing, even getting tattoos and more tattoos and all that. When he got the chest piece, everyone's like, what? And then he got the stomach piece and McGregor on his stomach, throwing a stool into a bus, and getting arrested and punching an old man in the face. But once you connect yourself to a person like that, and not good or bad, but people grow and change and make a lot of mistakes. If you're lucky, those mistakes aren't public to everybody to see. He wasn't that lucky. But once you connect yourself with a person like that seems to be making a lot of mistakes, people tend to sort of like think you're the same way.
Definitely.
Or you're like, or there's, when you're connected to someone that had made a lot of problematic decisions or mistakes, and you affiliate yourself with that person, people tend to think you're the same way. So I can't really give a definitive answer to like how I feel or who's Dillion Danis is. I'm pretty sure he's a cool guy. If I actually met him, he seems like a really cool guy. But I just feel like sometimes videos and interviews, and it just seems like, is this acting? Is he performing, or is he being himself? And if he's performing, be better at performing. If he's being legit, then okay, then you do you. But I don't know. But I think he's a remarkable fighter, and like jiu-jitsu and MMA fighter. But I don't think I answered your question. But
No, I think you did. But basically the reason I asked that is because, coming into the Brazilian jiu-jitsu community from a fan perspective, and then practicing and learning, even some of the guys in my school who are at the top levels, on like competitions, things like that. Like, you get to a point where, you've been humbled so many times, and you like carry yourself with this humbleness almost, you know what I mean? There's very few of those like really like monster, like crusher, like douche guys that once you get to like the upper echelon of like, like black belts that I've seen. A lot of them are very giving. A lot of them have learned their lessons, things like that. That's more like a blue belt turning into a purple belt. You still get some of those guys that are like, they'll put an elbow in your throat, things like that. So, what I saw from him was just pretty much status quo, like all the other like big stars in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Very respectful, very humble. And like you said, once he clicked with McGregor, his shirts became like colored like this, like the one I'm wearing.
A little more saturated.
Yeah, and then that's kind of what McGregor was doing at the same time. And by all means, like when you get with someone that you want to like emulate and you want to have his money, you got to do some of the things they do. But like you said, it rubs off on you, and the perception kind of sticks to you too. Like McGregor's bad stuff that was going on around that time. Like, think about it. Like, Khabib flew out of the cage onto Dillion Danis. You know what I mean? Like, he's the one he picked.
Like a literal eagle.
Yeah.
He flew and feet first, just try to stomp on his head.
One of the funniest memes I ever saw in my life.
And he was still angry.
Yeah, one of the funniest memes I ever saw in my life was Khabib in midair, and it says, "Don't ever call me kebab." It was so good. It was such a good one. But yeah, I mean, he's a very interesting character. But I would love to see him fight Jake Paul.
I mean, and again, just like how in a previous episode I said if I saw The Rock here, and I would hug his leg and call him daddy. Similar, I mean, not the same, but if Dillion Danis was in his room, I'd be like, teach me your ways, like in the jiu-jitsu and all that. Like,
yeah,
he's a remarkable athlete. I just feel like sometimes the I hate to say the word antics, but the antics can kind of like overshadow like your actual skill, sometimes. But I realize this driving here that if Ben Askren wins this fight, this boxing match, in quotes boxing match, he will technically have a better record in boxing than Conor McGregor.
Yeah, that is definitely true. There's a lot of people that have better records than McGregor.
Yeah.
And you know what? I heard also that Henry Cejudo is trying to get a fight with Floyd Mayweather. Did you hear about that?
Right. I mean, it seems like plausible.
He is that around that size, 140 mark, 150.
They're both 5'3",
Yeah.
and 130 pounds.
Yeah.
No, I think Cejudo. Actually, that might not be an exaggeration. I think Cejudo is about 5'4", 5'3". Maybe I'm wrong.
I think so. Yeah, because Peter Yan, I think, is 5'4", and they're about the same height.
Peter Yan is 5'4".
Yeah.
Wow.
Who was it?
I feel tall, but I'm not that tall.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a tough thing, man, because that 5'4" dude will put me on my head. Yeah. Henry Cejudo's got the technique, and you wouldn't think that.
He just said, you know what, I'm gonna skip college. I'm gonna go straight to the Olympics, and actually did it, and actually won. Again, actually talking about Henry Cejudo and like athlete antics surpassing your athleticism. I think he's one of those guys where people kind of dismiss him because he's kind of cringy. I mean, he kind of leans into the cringiness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think in the beginning it wasn't intentional cringe. I think he just tried to be kind of like badass, or I don't know. This is how I'm interpreting it. I think at one point he tried to be like hard and badass, and then people kind of poked fun at it, and then he kind of leaned into the cringe, and then he just kept being more and more cringy. But that's how I interpreted it. But same, like he's a legit athlete, wrestler, that whole Triple C thing. He is a champion in Olympics, which very few people can proclaim. He two division champ in UFC. Like that's not by mistake.
Yeah,
that's not a fluke.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite athletes in the sport. I think he's just taking a break. I think he'll be back. But to allude to the point about the cringiness, actually, I've been very close to this whole thing since he started, because I watched his career from the beginning, and like I knew about him through wrestling.
Right.
And I also used to watch this podcast that used to be called Stud Boy Radio. I don't know if you're aware of that. No. Well, Stud Boy is
Radio.
or Stud Boy something. I'm pretty sure it's Stud Boy Radio, but it's no longer on anymore. But it was a podcast run by Stud Boy, and he used to work with Team Alpha Male.
Who's Stud Boy?
Stud Boy is like he's like some dude that's rich, and they love him, and it used to be him and Buckholz, the coach. You remember Buckholz, and they used to be.
I forgot his first name, but I know the last name.
Yeah,
as a coach.
And then they used to cycle in people from Team Alpha Male, like some of the shows it would be Dillashaw. Some of the shows it would be like some of the women on the team.
Okay.
So it was pretty cool, and I even like called into the show a few times because they didn't have many viewers, and they'd have like the open lines and you could call. Anyway, they were the ones. Oh, and Benavidez was really the real hater on him from that group. Joseph Benavidez, and they used to say that he was so cringe, and that everywhere he goes, he would just take out his gold medal and show it around. So they kind of perpetuated this whole image of him to try to sully him before he was champion, and then he just ran with it, kind of like how Dillashaw ran with the snake in the grass thing,
Oh, okay. I mean, it's I always wonder, are the antics necessary? And I mean, I did make a video on it. I hate to plug my own YouTube page, but I did make a video about like telling a story. And if you don't have a story, I'm kind of condensing it a little bit, but if you don't have a story, it's just two people in a ring or octagon punching each other or trying to hurt each other. But what gets people viewing is the story behind it, and or the rivalry or the antics, behind it. And because, in a UFC card, in one pay-per-view card, the prelims and all that, there's at least 20 fights, 18 fights sometimes.
I think it's something, like something more like 16.
If you want to narrow it down, it's just two individuals in an octagon fighting. But what makes the first fight and the last fight different, I think, is because, one, obviously it's a skill, of what the athletes bring into the ring, but also the story they also bring into the ring. And I think that's why McGregor, for the next several years, he's going to be a draw because of his story. Regardless if he wins or loses, I think because of who his name was carrying him. Obviously, granted, he's earned earned it because of that knockout against Aldo and all those other fights. I think at the end of the day, it's really your story. Have you ever seen the Netflix series? Not series. Can't find my words. It's a Netflix special called In and of Itself.
No.
By oh no, I forgot the guy's name. But he's sort of like a storyteller slash magician. In and of itself, I believe it's on Netflix. Where I mean the magic illusions, card tricks that he does aren't super unique because I've seen them. I'm into
Derek Delgaudio.
Yeah. In and of itself, but what engages me in that special or that performance is the storytelling in between the tricks or in between the illusions, and really engaging with people and talking with them, and by the end you're like, people are crying. Even I was kind of crying towards the end of that, but it's a good show you should watch. But it really,
he's like, you see that tear? I put that there before the show started.
Yeah. But going back to the story, without the stories behind the magic or the illusions, it's just magic tricks that you've seen before. But it's the story behind it which kind of pulls at your heartstrings. But similar to the McGregor story, it's you need to have a narrative. It could be cringy though.
Yeah, he was another fighter that I knew about from Cage Warriors that I followed religiously. I actually went to Madison Square Garden when he won both belts, and I did take out a mini lease on a car to get those tickets. No,
wow.
Okay. I bought a bunch of tickets actually, and I sold the rest, and I made it. I kind of flipped it and made some money on it. And
that's actually pretty genius.
Yeah, it's the only time I tried it because people are like, "Oh, you do that all the time." People say that they do it, they scalp tickets and make money. And I was like, "This is a way I could go to this high-profile event."
You buy several, keep one or two, and sell the rest, so you can get your money back from those.
And then I ended up getting beer spilled on me by one of the people who eventually got a hold of one of my tickets that I sold, because it wasn't to the person I sold it to. I guess they resold it, and then there was these two jacked I don't want to be too.
Did they have garden hoses for veins?
That and they had North Face jackets that were too small, and and then their elbows were in my ribs, and
where was this? Is Madison Square?
Yeah, Madison Square Garden. I was
jacked New Yorkers.
Well, they weren't very from New York. They were European.
Okay.
But spilled beer all over me. I didn't give a shit. I was excited. It was a great card. But yeah, just to say, I went to that length to see him live when he won that belt. My favorite McGregor of all time had to be the one in Massachusetts. I forgot exactly who he fought, but I remember he wore those Celtic braids, and he had kind of the hair. I don't know why he never used that look again, because he was lethal
that was
as
early
hell.
Yeah. That was maybe his first, second fight then.
He wasn't champion. No, I think that was the one right before he got the Aldo fight. I'm pretty sure.
Then, not Silver.
Because he had Marcus Brimage.
Yeah.
Brandao, right?
Yeah.
And then I forget who else.
I don't know. I keep thinking.
Oh, Seaver.
I keep thinking the word. I kept thinking Silverman, but no, Seaver. I know it has an S and V in there somewhere.
Yeah. Dennis Seaver.
He was really good too.
Yeah. That guy was. He was legit. And USADA came along. No, I'm kidding. But he did just disappear out of nowhere.
Actually, mentioning USADA, there's one guy, he was legit. He reminded me of a jacked Bruce Lee, and it was Eric Silva.
Yeah.
And I'm this guy's going to be amazing. He's just, I remember he knocked out Josh Koscheck fairly easily. And I'm like, this guy's, really good. And USADA came.
He was scary.
And then he went... just shrunk.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened? Obviously.
As you know, the scariest one was Vitor.
TRT Vitor.
Yeah, that was honestly he was probably the best, the ultimate. Not to say the ultimate fighter, but he was the
ultimate fighter.
He really was. I think he kind of backed off on John Jones because he had his arm broken in that armbar.
He broke his arm.
He broke his arm, but I think like he didn't want to break it. Like he wanted him to tap. You know what I mean? Because if the arm was broken,
he practiced jiu-jitsu etiquette in an MMA fight,
exactly,
which you shouldn't do. Be like Frank Mir and just take the arm with you.
Take it with you.
But then again, who am I to give Vitor Belfort advice?
That's true, but it cost him a belt, and it cost him what it would eventually become a win over the GOAT. I mean, well, I guess people say is the GOAT. You know what I mean? Like potential GOAT. We'll have to see how he does at heavyweight. But I remember that fight. And Vitor was juiced, and he flew kick Bisping's eye out. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think he's the one that kind of caused his eye to be removed.
Yeah, no, he did detach his retina with that roundhouse. I mean, that like spinning.
Yeah,
roundhouse.
And he was literally like a Greek god or Roman god. Like if he went to the MoMA or not the MoMA, the Met, and you saw a Greek statue, that was Vitor. That was Vitor Belfort. But I remember when Vitor Belfort was much younger, and he was obviously on Mexican supplements, like very obviously. He grew his hair out, and he had like really tight curls. It's when he fought, I forgot who it was, maybe Marvin Eastman, where he elbowed him or cut him, where he literally saw his like tissue. You saw his skull.
Yeah.
I think it was Marvin Eastman that he fought. I could be wrong. Double check.
I remember that he was wearing like sneakers in the octagon, right?
I think so.
I think
but he had really tight like Greek curls, and he was just jacked, and he had
he had like a brook.
His traps were on his traps. But yeah, I do think when Vitor at that time when he fought John Jones was probably the most ideal fighter, like I think ever, because he had like 20 plus years of experience since he was like a teenager. And he was still recovering and strong and fast with the knowledge and everything. I think what happens a lot of times when you get older, you know, you get to this point where like your body just doesn't quite keep up, and I won't say breaks down, but you get broken down pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think him being on TRT, like he recovered as fast as any young 20-year-old. Plus, he had years and years of experience, and he was almost unbeatable.
He went from 25 to 45 in like the blink of an eye, and that's what I think. You know, he was just on this roller coaster, and then you eventually, at like 32, you start getting that. You know, you start seeing where you're gonna go down, and he just kept going up.
Yeah.
But then he went up so high that he just fell off the cliff. You know what I mean? He just turned into like. Just, whatever, maybe looks older than what he should look at 40s, you know what I mean? Just because of the extra supplements and all that. But, yeah, man, that fight was awesome. I remember that fight and the old lion versus the young lion, as he put it. And you know what? Another thing about his juice days that was
juice days.
another juice awesome
world.
Side effect. Just go back and listen to any of his interviews with Ariel. His interviews were off the charts. Like you said, The Ultimate Warrior, he was up there with The Ultimate Warrior. I don't know if you ever seen some of the clips of Ultimate Warrior.
I love The Ultimate Warrior.
He was mystic as hell.
Fanboy.
Yeah. So go watch Vitor Belfort interviews. Watch Ultimate Warrior interviews.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He would Ultimate Warrior would snarl into the microphone, and he would just say the most bizarre, surreal. Like if Salvador Dali can. Like if someone got his paintings and made it into a speech, that is like what the Ultimate Warrior would say. like I won't even try to repeat it because I won't do it any service. But just look up the Ultimate Warrior interview, whatever, and it's amazing. But he was just incompetent, just berserker kind of wrestler. But his story is interesting because. He got into like the WWE Hall of Fame, and I think that night he died. That same night he died.
Wow. I
think at age like 51. Like he said thank you to everyone, I appreciate it, and then like 6 hours later, like Ultimate Warrior in this like not hospital in his hotel passed away.
Were there any extenuating circumstances like that? Like did he just
I don't
guess
know.
partied
Are you asking
really
me
hard.
If he OD'd? Is that what you're trying to say?
Or maybe just
I
did
don't-
like a hotel room
Yeah.
match and like fell.
I don't know. I mean, it could have just.
Like he was out of the
Been-
game and he just dipped his toe one more time, like that. I gotta check it out. But
It's like the movie The Wrestler.
oh yeah, that's a great movie.
Which, by the way, parts of it was filmed in Garfield, which is where we are right now.
Yeah,
Garfield, New Jersey.
that made me have like. I mean, Mickey Rourke was always
cried.
cool, but the thing is, something like him, like people like that, they do like a lot of surgeries and like they completely change. It kind of like detaches myself from like their old image of them. So he kind of like lost this whole like legendary actor thing in my eyes. You know what I mean? Like just when I saw him, I just thought like, oh, what's happening here? But then when I saw that movie, I was like, damn, even you could put him in any skin and he would still be an amazing actor.
Yeah, obviously, he's obviously a really good actor.
Yeah.
I think also, the reason, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think the reason why he got some plastic surgery is because he boxed. Because he got into boxing around, I believe his early 30s, and he got some scar tissue, and his face changed a little bit, and I think he tried to like get his youthfulness back, and it didn't work out, and he just kept getting it. I mean,
no shame in people trying to like, if
No,
you
of
live in
course
front of the camera, you get surgeries, more power to you. I don't care what anybody does with any surgery. It's not like that, but it's just it's when you look completely different from yourself, it just kind of throws me off, you know what I mean? And then at one point I was just like, damn, like, how's he gonna be able to pull his acting off if when you get a lot of surgeries, your facial expression, and it just goes to show you some people, it's not their like facial expressions, it's just like their timing, their all the other skills they've learned through the years, they still got it within them to like really put a good performance in. Have you ever seen sticking to the wrestling theme? Have you ever watched Dark Side of the Ring?
Is that with Jake the Snake?
No, well, it's like a series, and they pick people each series to like delve deep into their life.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, they do a lot of episodes like Superfly. They do Owen Hart. A lot of really good episodes.
I'm gonna flip my phone over because it keeps ringing on me. I keep looking down at
It's
it.
okay. It doesn't pick it up on the microphone.
Okay, good.
But I suggest, first off, I was a big wrestling fan, like a lot of kids when we were young, but
Me too.
I fell off of wrestling when I was able to like kind of predict what was going to happen. Like, like
when you saw like this, how the sausage was made kind of thing.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, this isn't going to end like this. Someone's going to come in and like break it up and there's disqualification. Yeah. Then once I started doing that, I lost it for me. And it was like around, maybe 12, 13. I got into sports.
Yeah, me too.
And, but I always had respect for that era of wrestling, and that's why this show's amazing still. You go back and it's like a whole different ball game. I suggest anybody that used to like wrestling, even if you don't watch it now, you'd love the show.
What was it called again?
The Dark Side of the Ring.
Dark Side of the Ring. Actually, I mean, I do give props to those guys are still fans of entertainment wrestling, and I'll say entertainment wrestling because that's what it is. But the reason why I stopped watching is because it got too real for me. I know it sounds like I'm contradicting you, but is when Owen Hart died, where when he was at the Blue Blazer, and he sort of came down from the raft from like the ceiling or whatever, and then he fell onto the turnbuckle, and it was like this moment of like, this is part of the play, right? This is like, this is a part of the play. That was supposed to happen, right? And it wasn't. And then like me being like, I don't know how old I was, I think like 11, 12 at the time, was sort of like weird to, and by the way, this is before the internet, so like you couldn't just like quick Google something and find out. You had to sort of wait and the news, and then it wasn't until I saw it on the news where they said Owen Hart, aka the Blue Blazer, actually died in the hospital. I was like, oh, like after that, I just stopped watching wrestling completely.
Yeah, that episode is really good, and there's some like, underlying theories about that.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of like, not go too overboard and say that it was like a murder attempt, but there is some negligence involved where someone was just like turning the other way. on the equipment he was using, and they wanted to see him get hurt, and it resulted in a death. You know, because they show the evidence in the Dark Side of the Ring. There is the Owen Hart episode.
Yeah,
they go.
I mean, it has to be.
Yeah, that's pretty much the whole reason they started. They're like, all right, we're gonna do the Owen Hart.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, they show like the equipment he actually used that night, and you're just like, you as a person that's never even done any stunts, you'd be like, who would ever fucking do that? Like, who would ever use this?
No,
but
I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's definitely great. You guys should check that out. Yeah, so this became a whole like MMA, you know, like combat sports episode.
We've never got into the actual Dustin Poirier versus McGregor 3 might come out like as a movie. They might fight.
It's official.
June?
Yeah, no, it's July 10th, I believe. In Vegas.
What's unfortunate, and again, this is like, I mean, you can't. I mean, I'm gonna just say you can't just claim or say I'm gonna donate to your, you know, organization, your charity, and not do it. Like,
well, you know what? This is where I've kind of fall off on that, because I remember after the fight, Dustin's team tweeting out, "Mad props to McGregor. Your team immediately reached out to us to receive the money, to send the money to us." So, I mean, somewhere there's a disconnect, because they did reach out to them. Now McGregor's saying that they didn't. You know, usually when you give someone money, you can ask if it's for a charity. You can ask,
deductible.
Yeah, what is this going to be used for? What's the plan for this money? You know, like, especially when you donate to a school, they're supposed to put up together a plan for you.
Yeah, you want to know where it goes.
Exactly. What, you know, you're buying 1,000 books, you're buying computers for the kids, you know, like even something basic. And what he said was his team, who I'm sure it doesn't have anything to do with McGregor. He hires people that do this for him.
Yeah,
they're pretty seasoned
if I was
people.
in his position, I would probably just hire people to do things for me.
Yeah. And so they're pretty seasoned and do what they do, you know. So I guess they asked for that and they never got anything back. And then he was alluding in the tweets that there's something shady with Dustin's foundation and that he's going to get caught in the future.
Okay.
So I mean, it could be just
know.
also words, like spiteful words to get back at him, you know. But
yeah, again, the story. So we were referencing the fight, and we didn't even talk about the fight yet. We talked about the drama behind the scenes that don't even. I mean, does it affect the fight? Maybe, maybe not. I think Dustin is gonna win again.
You think so? You know what? My brain is telling me Dustin again. But
if I was betting money, which I plan to, I bet Dustin again. But it might go like 4, or maybe it might go to decision.
See, but the thing with the Dustin fight for me is that they're young enough. Let's say McGregor beats him. If McGregor beats him, I think we see another one.
A fourth one?
I think we see a fourth one. Yeah. If McGregor finishes him
whatever
quick.
Makes money, I guess.
Because I think, like, let's say McGregor beats him, right? McGregor beats him, and let's say Nate fights Masvidal, right? And let's say
hypothetically, they already fought, but okay.
Jose's fucking magic, Steven Spielberg MMA, you know. Okay, so Masvidal beats
You're
Usman.
creating your own narrative.
Yeah,
right now.
my whole narrative. Masvidal beats Usman, right? Then Nate beats Leon Edwards. They're gonna do that title fight.
Nate against Masvidal.
Yeah, let's say Nate beats Masvidal, and Conor beats Dustin right now. They're gonna do that fight, the trilogy with Conor and Nate for that belt, and wouldn't he would be able to become a 3-weight world champion?
If all those dots connect, sure, that could happen.
It's 3 dots, the 3 big dots, but
there needs to be 3 fights that have to,
3-fight parlay
lean towards your favor for that to happen, and they have to agree.
I wonder what my betting odds are on that. If I put a 3-fight parlay on that. I'd probably make
that's something.
I'd make more than I made putting money to Doge Coin.
Who would take that? I actually have. I did invest in Doge.
You did?
Yes.
You didn't miss the boat of Doge?
No, it was. I had it. I invested $10.
Nice.
And it was 6 cents a share, or 6 cents whatever.
Wow. Congrats.
What's the connection? I don't know. I guess call it a share.
Yeah.
And it went from 6 cents to 30 cents in like a week.
Yep.
So
This
like,
week.
yeah. So now I had $10. Now I have like 40 something. I mean, it's nothing. I wish there was like 4 or 5 more zeros next to that money, those numbers. But I just did it for fun. Like, hey, I have $10. I'll put $10 into this. See what happens.
Yeah, it's the fun thing about crypto.
And if it keeps going up, great. If it goes down, I lost $10.
I think Doge is gonna go over $1, so I think you're good on that. I have some money in cryptocurrency, but for me, I'm like a boring guy when it comes to investment in crypto. I like to go for like the sure shots and the solid stocks, less risk.
Like Apple and Sony and Disney?
Not necessarily, but more like individualized in their sectors. Like I did it with stocks, NVIDIA, which they do like processors for chips, like computer
That's
graphics.
That's not going to go away.
Yeah, and they're like the leading company, and a lot of new smartphones that are going to be like bendable and stuff with the screens use their technology, so they're still going to grow in the future. So I like that. It's a sure shot for me in my eyes. But it's not exactly like McDonald's or Disney, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are blue chip.
if I if I knew about investment 15 years ago, I would have invested in Chipotle. Like now their stock is ridiculous.
A good company.
But that's again being Captain Hindsight,
Yeah.
Like, I could have, would have, should have, but didn't. But you think Dustin will beat McGregor?
I think this whole drama,
even though your narrative was not that.
No, my MMA fantasy world. I think Dustin beats him. Yeah, I think Dustin beats him. But you know what? I see Conor trading though, and I think it's close. But like same thing with my brain telling me things, and usually when I have that split, my brain wins like 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah. It's I don't know, but it's when it comes to, I tend to favor whoever won if it's a trilogy, I tend to favor whoever won the last fight. So if I think if Nate fought McGregor again, Nate won the first fight, McGregor won the second fight. I think McGregor would win the third fight. But similarly, McGregor won against Dustin the first fight. Dustin won the second fight. I think Dustin won the third fight. There is momentum is a thing, and McGregor beat Porier at a different weight class when they were like 7 years younger. Like that's 7. Like McGregor beat Porier 7 years ago. I'm just throwing a number out. It could be 6. It could be 8. Poirier beat him like what, 3 months ago?
Yeah, 3 months ago.
So if they do have a quick turnaround, which they are, it's in Poirier's favor, And not only that, whatever worked 7 years ago may not work. Obviously, didn't work the last fight, and can you defend the calf kick and learn how to defend it? And
one thing about that is I don't think it's that he didn't know how to defend it. I think he's always known how to defend it. It's just he did it that night, and it doesn't take many of those to affect you.
One.
Yeah, it doesn't take many, and I think he landed a good one.
I got kicked in the calf one time. It just takes once. Just take one.
Yeah, I think he just didn't expect it because he didn't see him doing it, So
yeah.
But
I got kicked in the calf one time doing Muay Thai, and I actually had like a shin pads, and Kai just whacked me right in the calf, and one time I'm like, give me 1 second. And obviously, if it was an actual fight with money on the line, you would keep fighting, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm just practicing. And he hit me one time, and immediately my whole calf was just like black and blue.
Ooh.
Like, just swelled up. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm done. Thank you. Thanks for no thanks. But yeah, so I guess and then maybe conclude. But yeah, Ben Askren against Jake Paul. I don't even know how you're gonna see it, but I think Jake Paul's gonna win, but via disqualification, because Ben Askren is not gonna care. He's just gonna hug and push and dirty box and all that. And the McGregor versus Poirier fight. I mean, again, we're gonna talk about it more in the future when it gets closer. But I think Poirier will win, but my opinion might change as it creeps closer and closer.
Yeah, I think Dustin will win the the third fight. I'm sorry, and also Ben will lose Jake Paul will win decision. And just one quick one on the way out.
I think it's a moral victory for Ben.
Masvidal and Usman. That's next week.
I think Usman is going to win again.
You think Usman? I'm going to go with Masvidal in this one. Obviously, my fantasy world. Again, my heart and my mind, they're split. But I think with the semi-camp that he had, because he didn't have a full camp, but he's right. I think, like, on 6 days' notice, he couldn't finish him. He doesn't have that, like, beast in him, Usman. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have that, like, nasty person in him. You know, the nastiest I've ever seen him was versus Colby. But Colby kind of pushed him to that. You know what I mean? Like, he took him there.
Yeah.
But I think Masvidal is gonna be able to withstand the wrestling.
Just seeing. I know we put ourselves in a time limit.
Yeah.
But just to, because I don't want to feel like I want to get the last word in. But when it comes to Usman, seeing his last fight and getting clipped once or twice against
Burns,
against Gilbert Burns. Seeing that he was able to recover and readjust and like restart himself between rounds and like, okay, like this is what I gotta do, and just being able to adapt that quickly in within the, I guess the break is like 1 minute, and win decisively the next round. That takes one, grit, and two, a lot of just like quick thinking and a lot of smarts. But I think it might be the same fight, Usman against Masvidal too. I think it might be just like the first fight, but maybe a bit more decisive against, for Usman. I don't see him finishing Masvidal. I don't remember the last time he's even been finished, but but I don't see him finishing Masvidal. But I do see him winning again.
Okay. Shout out to Usman and Masvidal.
So this kind of became just an MMA boxing.
Yeah, this is MMA 1 episode of Words Are Tough.
But at the end of the day, we're just shooting the shit. It's just, I'm just talking out of my ass. I don't,
Yeah, I gotcha.
If any of
don't come up on the street and punch me in the face.
Yeah,
I didn't mean anything I said.
And if any of these fighters that we reference were in this room, I mean, I don't think we were rude at all.
No, not rude at all. Except maybe when I said Vitor, it was his juice days. But I mean, he probably loves those days. When he thinks back on them, he's like, "That was my prime."
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he denies taking supplements.
No, it was legal back then too. Remember?
Yeah, and he was open about taking TRT. I mean, at the time, it was completely legit. It was, and then when it wasn't okay, he stopped taking.
Well, you know what? It's still legit for anyone out there. You're hitting that age, you're 40.
Well,
go to your doctor.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of that, especially when you're not in combat sports. You know?
If for the everyday guy, you want to stay spry and
maintain your muscle mass.
Maintain all muscle mass.
Yeah,
everywhere. But yeah, no. But in the context of combat sports, you want to stick within the rules, and if that's the rule, then that's the rule. You know?
Level playing field. And on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this MMA episode edition of Words Are Tough. My name is Jose Rodriguez, and my co-host
David Diokendo.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.